Oh,
Oh, it's
hey.
my big computer.
Oh, this is Kaye Collins. She has a big computer behind her and a small computer in front of her. Welcome to Facebook Live. Bienvenidos, willkommen, bienvenue. What do you have for us in Italian, Kaye? Do you know in
Oh,
Italian?
not much. Oh, molto bene.
Okay, that sounds great. Oh, man.
Buongiorno.
There you go. Kaye has been on our Pro Stitcher Facebook Live before, and she is a national educator with Handy Quilter and also has a solid specialty in Pro Stitcher. And Kaye, how long have you been an educator? A couple of
2.5, almost 3 years.
Okay. And do you have a favorite region to travel to, or does that put you too much on the spot?
Well, I do love going to the Northeast. I grew up in Maine, and so I live in Utah, and so I do love going back and teaching at all the shops in Maine and New Hampshire, especially because that feels like home to me.
My guess is you wouldn't turn down a shop in like Hawaii or the
Oh,
Florida
well,
Keys.
no. And when
Okay.
I go to Texas, I get to go to Buc-ee's, so that's really fun.
Yeah, yeah. I'm currently in Texas, and yeah, folks really, really love that destination gas station. It's
It's fun.
it's delicious and fun. But anyway, well, I'm going to go ahead and hop over into our comments and see how many folks are hopping on and saying hello. Oh, we have someone from North Texas. She knows about Buc-ee's, and Virginia, Northeast Pennsylvania, and Bill got here a little early, but we're here now. So, who else? Do you have any quick questions for Kaye that you might want to drop in the comments before we start our big exciting demo? Nothing yet.
Well, hopefully this will be fun today.
Colorado and Boston and New Hampshire. Well, so today you're going to talk to us about using the area feature in Pro Stitcher.
I am, because as I go around, I realize that it's kind of a confusing thing for people. They don't really understand, we just use it to make an edge to edge, and people are confused about what else it can do. And so I use it for quite a few little different things. So we'll cover some of those today.
And I do think that the area feature is specific to Pro Stitcher software. So a lot of the things that all long arm robotic systems can do, crop blocks and stitch out things, the area feature really is specific to Pro Stitcher and lets you do some really interesting, neat tricks. And while we're just kicking off, I want to let everybody know that this video is recorded and will be on Facebook, on the Pro Stitcher website, and I'm sorry, the Pro Stitcher Facebook page, and then also hosted on Pro Stitcher YouTube. So we have a few folks who are look like they're ready to go. Shelby wants to know if this is a regular occurring training. We are having the Facebook Lives demonstrations, short demonstrations, a couple times a month. So I'm going to say yes-ish. It's not official. Like, it's not official training.
It's a plan. But
it's, pop in for a couple minutes, learn something. Okay. All right. Well, I will let Kaye take it away, and I will be answering your questions in the comments. And then we'll also probably be able to take some questions at the end. Ready, Kaye?
I am ready.
Great.
Well, great. Let's talk about areas. So areas is, and we're going to be in this tab right at the very top. And areas are really an interesting thing. So I tend to think about it kind of being like a Tupperware container. So a lot of times you'll have an area and you put things in it, and the area kind of holds things in. And for those of you who have done an edge to edge so far, that will make perfect sense to you. Sometimes we pour out everything in our container and we delete just what's in the container. And so I'm going to show you how to do all of those things today. One thing that you need to know about areas is you can only ever have one open at a time. And so that makes us have to be creative sometimes. Later on, we're going to talk about using areas to crop. And you can only crop one thing at a time, and you can only have one area open at a time. So the other thing that's cool about areas, and this is the part that I find people don't understand, is that areas can be used and have edits made to them just like a design. They can be resized, they can be moved, they can be selected. And so, we can do all those things, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then we're also going to talk about the dreaded dotted box, because you guys have, if you're a Pro Stitcher person, you've had that moment where all of a sudden your lovely pink box has turned into a perforated looking box, and that moment of panic of, okay, my area has moved. So we'll talk about all those things today, and how to deal with those challenges. So first of all, there are kind of basically three different ways of having areas. So we're going to talk about those. I'm old, so I have to wear my glasses to see my screen. So the first one is called two corner. And where we would use a two corner area most of the time is to build an edge to edge. And so right up here on our ribbon, so the top row are tabs. And so here we're in our area tab, and just below it, we have a two corner button. Now I want to talk about this because right in the middle of that two corner button, you can see that there is a star. So when you are actually working on Pro Stitcher, you can go ahead and touch your screen, and I do mean touch, not smack it around, okay? But you can actually touch the two corner button, or if you've got one of the machines that has the programmable buttons, the star and the diamond, the star, whenever you are in the area tab, it doesn't matter how you have them programmed. When you're in the area tab, that star is two corner, and you can always use that. When you're in the area tab, the diamond is always multi-point. People sometimes get those mixed up, and you'll think that you're doing a two corner, and we use multi-point more. So we get into the habit of hitting that diamond button, and then things go crazy, and it's okay. These things happen. So when we're doing an edge to edge, generally what I'll do is I'm putting my, I'm actually moving my handlebars so that I'm just above. So I've got all the whole quilt loaded, and I'm going just above where I want it to stitch, so just above the edge of the quilt. And I'm one of those people, I like to give myself some wiggle room. So I will go like an inch off the edge of my actual quilt so that I have some wiggle room on both the right and left. So right here, I've moved off to the left about an inch, and I'm going to hit my two corner button. And you should hear a ping. I didn't hear a ping, probably because I'm on here. And then you're going to move it as far down as you can go. So you're actually moving your handlebars on your machine, and you're going down all the way to the bar and at least an inch off to the right. And you're going to touch that two corner button again, whether you touch it on your screen or you touch it on the handlebars. Now I'm going to go ahead and just move this a little bit. Oh, something horrible just happened. I accidentally selected the area, which is not what I meant to do. Okay, there's my area. That's what it should look like. It should be pink. It should be solid lines. And then you have this area. But since I just did that, let me just show you what happened. I'm here in my area tab. Right here, I have a select button. And if I touch that, my area turns green. And now it is selected, and I could resize it here. I could move it. I could do all sorts of things to it. I don't need to right now because I just set it up for my area. So I would just like you just saw me do, I'm just going to deselect it by touching select again. So I have this area. Now, once I have this, so we're going to pretend this is a quilt, okay? So my quilt is 14.46 inches wide and 4.95 inches tall. Well, we all know that once we have a quilt loaded, we can't get the whole, we can't put in the whole length of the quilt. And Kay might forget to measure her quilt sometimes. You guys would probably never do that. I do it all the time. It's like, was this quilt 72 long or 84? If I don't know, I'm going to go with the larger number, and I'll probably pad it a little bit. So like, let's say right now, I think that this quilt is 15 by 15. I would probably just go ahead and come in here. Whoops. And I would put in maybe 20 and hit enter. And now I have my area. So when I'm building an edge to edge, I'm going to use this two corner feature to do that. Once you put in a design and you baseline it, you no longer need this pink box. So once you've baselined it, you can actually go ahead and clear this pink area. So let's just, I don't actually, I don't want to build one quickly, but I do want to show you something because we used to have clear up here in the ribbon, and recently clear has been moved over here into the sidebar. So if you're just trying to clear your area, look over here. All right, so that is new in the last few months. So some of you may have missed that little change. So that is two corner. Now, the other time when I would use two corner is I've been quilting along and now I've gotten to the end of the quilt, or I'm at where it's going to be in the last pass and I need to crop off that extra that I've done. I use two corner the exact same way. So at this point, I've been able to delete the pink box so it's not moving around on my screen. And I will actually make sure I will go off to the side on both sides and make sure that all of the design I don't need to use anymore from the bottom of the quilt down into imaginary land, that's all selected. And then I actually crop the inside and the edges. And so that gets rid of all the extra and allows me to just stitch out that last row perfectly. There are lots of videos. I'm not going to get into that right now because there are lots of videos about how to crop the end of your design. I have one. They're on prostitcher.com. They're on handyquilter.com. They're everywhere. So if you're struggling with that, there are places to get help. But those are kind of the two ways that I would use two corners. So to build an edge to edge and basically to crop off the end of an edge to edge. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and clear that. I can hit this clear. I do notice right here that we have a point count of 4. So even though I did two corner, Pro Stitcher knows that I'm using this coordinate and this coordinate, and it puts in the other two corners. So I do have 4 points. That is going to come in important in just a minute. So let's go ahead and clear that. So now let's talk about multi-point. Okay, so multi-point. Oh, I just put in a dot, which I didn't really mean to. There we go. So multi-point is a little bit more used, I think, because for those of you, I know that we all like to think that we're perfect quilters, but the very first time you put one of your quilts on the frame and it's all loaded and it looks beautiful, and you go and you start putting in your first block and you think this is very square and then beautiful, and then you put in your points and it's like and you're like, wait a minute, that has to be wrong, clear area, and then you go and you put in your area again and it's like okay, so that's real. So trust yourself. This is another point, is that in multi-point you want to be very careful with where you are placing your points. For those of you who have Amaras and Infinities who have the laser point, that gives you a really precise placement to put your dots here. If you've got one of the older machines or one that doesn't have lasers, you're just going to have to learn to really sight where your needle's going to be, because when you're doing multi-point, you want to be very precise with your point placement. So we're just going to do a pretend here. Okay, so we're going to pretend I'm going to do multi-point. Actually, I'm going to open something up just for a second. So let's do file. I had something open yesterday. Okay, so let's pretend this is our design that we actually want to put into a border. And so just so you have a frame of reference, I'm going to go ahead and do an area and do a multi-point. So I would put a point here. Now, I would not go all the way to the end of my quilt and just put one point there, because we know that our quilt is probably like this. So I'm going to go along and I'm going to every few inches. And it kind of depends on what your project is, of how often you're going to put in a point. But I'm just going along and putting in some points, and I'm deliberately making my area not square because this is real life and I don't want you to panic when you try to do this the first time. Okay, now I'm going to go across. Now, do you see this area is connecting itself? Every time I put in a new point, it connects back to the beginning. All right, that's an important thing to understand about areas. Let's do another point. Let's put one up. Let's move it up a little like that. Okay, we'll just say I was having a hard day of quilting this day. And okay, so let's go with that. So I have this beautiful design that's very square, and I have an area that's not very square. I am going to go ahead and just baseline my design, and then I'm going to go to modify, and I'm going to go to skew. Now, if I use the regular skew, I want you to see what happens. Yeah, that's not what you wanted to happen, right? Regular skew button is made for 4 points, okay? Now we put in a whole lot more points than 4 in our area. So we're going to use the border skew for this. And then poof, there it is. It fits into our border. Now I know it does, to our eye, we know that that's not perfectly straight, but on the quilt, that is going to look really perfect. So that's a way to use our multi-point. I use multi-point for all. Oh, I forgot to grab a quilt. I use multi-point for all sorts of things. Not You can use it for, if you're doing a custom design in a just in a block, in a square block, instead of just doing the 4 corners, do every couple of inches, and you're going to get a really tight design that fits in your space really nicely. I recently did a flowering snowball. And the designs that I used were shaped to fit into those shapes. But every single time I had to let's say I had to do, I don't know, 100 melons. Every single time I did one, I went and just kind of put in a loose multi-point area, because what it allowed me to do, I could not skew that design in. Okay, we can't always skew designs, but having that area there allowed me to rotate and resize a little bit so that I get a really, really nice finish on that quilt. But areas was a tool that allowed me to know this is the space on my quilt, and now I can adjust things to fit in before I started stitching and then had to pick out. We don't like that. So you can use multi-point for doing all sorts of different shapes and areas. Now, the other thing is that we can use it to crop things out. So let me clear all this. I'm going to go to File, Clear All, and I'm going to open up a little workspace that I made yesterday. So I'm going to go to File, Workspace, Open. And here we have a little design that I did. Now, if you notice, our pink lines along here are dotted. They are always going to be dotted when you open something up again, because it's not necessarily in the same place where it was when you designed it. Even if you only move that pink one tenth of a millimeter, it will turn into dotted lines. So when that happens, in this situation, it just doesn't matter because I just opened it up. And I've already baselined this. When I tend to baseline things when I open them, and I could just get rid of this area because I can only have one area open at a time, and I need a different area. So if I go into my area and I clear it, so I still have my nice closed edges and everything. Now I'm going to go ahead and use an area to crop. So there are a couple of ways to do this. I can go into area and then go to file, and I can ask it to open. Now, when I get here, right now I'm in designs. I have to actually click up into the areas folder, and look at all these cool areas I could use. All right. So let's say I want a heart. So I'm going to open the heart area. And it's actually even hard for me to see right here. So let's say I'm going to show you a little trick here. So I would want this little heart. So it's right here. I'm sure you got, I just dropped my phone. Yeah, it's $1,000. I don't think it broke. Here's my little heart. And I want to put it right in the middle of this space. So let me show you some tricks we can do. So first I've got my needle placed and my design is selected. So I could go up here to modify and reposition. And what I'm going to do is I'm repositioning the design, and I'm just going to center it. See how that all moved? Now, my heart is still attached to my crosshairs, but it's not centered. Now I can go to area and I can select it. Can you see that it just turned green, and the design in back of it actually has grayed out? So at this point, I can go to modify and I can go to reposition and I can hit center again. and my heart just actually moved so that it is now centered. Now I can also resize this. So if I go ahead and lock this so that my aspect stays the same, I could just make it a little bit bigger. I think that's going to be easier for you to see now. And you can see that I have this beautiful area that is perfectly centered on my background. And I can go ahead and crop this. So I'm going to go back to area. I want to unselect it. So now I've turned it back to pink. And at this point, you could crop it. Now, when I went to modify, nothing's happening. Why? The reason it's not doing anything is because my design is not selected. So if I click on it, there it is. If you are worried about moving it, you can always you can go into workspace and make sure it's selected. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to crop the inside of that using so I'm using an area, the second area I've used. So I can go modify, crop. This time I would crop the inside. And then you have to make a decision whether you're going to close the edges. Now, I want to talk about that. It's not technically talking about areas, but it kind of is. When you click edges, what you are doing is you are giving ProStitcher permission to use the area line as a stitching line. ProStitcher is not emotional at all. It's totally mathematical. So it's going to use its math to stitch wherever it needs to, which means that you may have some places that are not stitched at all, and you will have other places that have 5 or 6 different lines of stitching. And so if you're closing your edges, just understand that every single time you close edges, you are giving ProStitcher permission to use your area line to stitch. All right. Now for me, I generally do it because I'm lazy. Oh, right. But if it was something really important, I would probably go ahead and deal with all those crazy starts and stops. But for right now, because we're going to go ahead and close the edges. So I would go ahead and stitch this out. And then I want to show you one more trick. So I'm gonna close the area for just a second. I wouldn't normally do this, but I want you to be able to see it. So I'm going to clear the area. Oh, what did I forget to do? That's funny. I forgot to baseline, so my changes didn't stick. Okay, so let's baseline, and then let's go ahead and clear my area. Now it's stuck. Now you can see that this line is all stitched, but right here I have a big hole in my heart. So the heart is all cropped, but it's not a real clean look. So I'm going to go ahead and undo. Before I got rid of that, when I was stitching, one thing you can do is you can go to ProStitcher, and when you hit quilt, over here in our sidebar, there is a very cool button called Trace Area, and we all have Trace Area. And you can use that, and what it will do is it will actually stitch on your pink line. Now, one thing you need to understand about Trace Area, you don't get to choose where it starts. In fact, you have no idea where it starts because there's not ever going to be a green dot come up, okay? You just kind of have to trust. So it will start wherever the designer made that design start. And if you have a thread break in the middle of tracing an area, there is no way to restart it except to go back to the beginning and retrace. Okay, so just know those are kind of a couple of the issues with Trace Area. And yet I love it and I use it all the time. It's a great little feature. Okay, so something new to try is to go ahead and use Trace Area. And once you actually, when you hit it, it will turn green. When it finishes, it will just go back to beige. All right, so let's see if there was anything else that I wanted to show you. I think that kind of covers what we can do with areas with multi-points. Now let's see. There is another kind of area that I want to show you. Let's go ahead and clear all. Now, for our friends who have ProStitcher Lite, you don't have this feature, but I do want to show it to you because there are so many questions about this feature because we never seem to show it. And it is called the rubber band area. So when I go into area right now, you can see that RB area is actually grayed out. And that's because I don't have a design open. So I need to open a design. So let's go to File, Design, Open. And we're just going to pick, I can't remember. Okay, this will work fine. So I am going to ask it to make a rubber band area around this. So I go to my area tab, and now I'm just going to click on RB area. And this might not be what you expected to happen. You might have thought, oh, that's pretty much circular. It will be a circle. What it does is it now puts an area that goes around the design and it on all the outside edges. So we have kind of a funky, weird area. So I don't use it a whole lot for that kind of thing, but let me show you a place where using an area, a rubber band area, can be really helpful. So let's go ahead and just clear all that. And let's File, Design, Open. So I have this frame. So this is from one of our Pro Stitcher designs. It's called the icicle frame. Okay, so there's the frame. And then I can open a design that goes inside the frame, this glacier cushion block. I think this is for the Alaska quilt. So if I pick this first design, so I just clicked on it, and I go ahead and go to area and put a rubber band area around it. Okay, so it's found the area. Now I can do something really cool. I can just click on this second design and I can go to modify. So I want this to fit in there perfectly. So if you are doing areas and you want to move things around in an area, another way besides repositioning is that you can use Align. So we're going to go to our Align tab. And how I remember that is A for area and A for Align. So if I click on, I've got my second design selected, I've clicked on Align, and I actually, so here, there's a lot of options over here. We have no Align or center, that's sent both ways. I can just do it horizontally, I can do it vertically, or I can actually stretch some things. Honestly, most of the time I'm doing centering. So I'm just going to click on center and poof, just like that. I didn't have to do anything fancy. I just threw a rubber band area around that and then added, whoops, I've deselected them both, but there we go. So we have our design perfectly centered in that frame. So that's a way to use the rubber band area. Honestly, I use multi-point probably, well, I use edge to edge every single time I do an edge to edge design. So, the 2-point and the multi-point are the ones that you're going to use a lot. But I think that kind of covers some of the things about areas that you might not have known before, that you can change their size. You can go ahead and edit them, just like if I wanted to change this, once I made the rubber band, I could still go in and I could select it and resize it. So there's a lot you can do. So Jen, do we have any questions about areas?
Hey, I'm back. I just popped up in the lower corner, just like magic, because our producer Jacob is a magician. We don't have too many questions, and we do have another educator who is popular in Pro Stitcher Posse, Patty Sliney, who has been answering a lot of questions, or answering some questions in the chat as well.
Patty's awesome. Thanks, Patty.
You two hosted a quilt along together maybe a year or two ago, right? Yeah.
In fact, it was that flowering snowball one.
I think that was some great information on areas. I actually have never used it to the rubber band to center on that last demonstration. Like, I mean, I'm in Pro Stitcher all the time. I use it a lot. I clearly work here, and yeah, wow, I'm going to try that one. So that was outstanding. Let's see. Yes, we will be able to, if you're just joining us, you will be able to watch this. This broadcast went live on YouTube and did not quite go live on Facebook, but we will be able to share the YouTube event onto our Facebook channel. So you won't miss anything and it will always be there. Kaye, thank you so much for agreeing to hop on a Facebook Live and share all your infinite wisdom.
Oh, well, I wish I had infinite wisdom, but I'm happy to help anytime.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. And thanks for joining us. And that's all, Jacob.